Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cut through all the propaganda, give it to you straight from left, right, and center. The opinions are what counts. Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's the weekend edition, and I'm proud to have two great patriots from the state of Connecticut with me, Lee Elci and Joe Visconti. Welcome to Schaftlein Report. Boy, we have a lot to talk about today.
Thank you for having us on.
Hey, Lee, let me start with you since you're the newcomer here to the show. What did you make of the action yesterday in the United Nations where the United States, shockingly, is the one pushing a ceasefire, and now we have a situation where Russia and China make the decision to veto it? How's that playing out on the global political stage, Lee?
Well, it makes us look weak, I think, and I think it was paramount that we stand by one of our staunchest allies from the beginning of this, after October 7th, when Israel decided that they were going to once and for all eliminate Hamas at whatever cost they had to go through. And of course, we all know what that cost is. They have to go hunt them out. They've got to destroy the infrastructure. We needed to stand by them and should stand by them through thick and thin from start to finish. So I think it makes us look weak. I think it makes us look as though we don't stand by our allies. And again, when you got our two biggest adversaries basically nixing something like that, it's a bad look. Biden, it's one bumble after another for this guy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, on the world stage, again, this never would have happened in a Trump administration. I mean, wouldn't even have thought about something like this. And now we have a situation where the United States is embarrassed. I mean, Joe Visconti, give me your take on this, because I'm looking at a situation here when Russia and China step up and embarrass the United States, and it was a self-inflicted wound. This did not have to happen.
I think I was on Sarasota Beach a couple of weeks ago on your show talking about the United Nations and that they could provide humanitarian relief, which they should, and they can. There's many things they can do to be helpful right from the very beginning. This is not one of them. Wasn't a move that our government should have done, but this is Joe Biden. These are the communists behind him that hate America that are putting us in a bad position all along. And it's sad because the human toll on this doesn't have to be this way. The UN could help, but they're just strong arming Bibi Netanyahu. This is what they're doing. They want him out. The good news is Mike Johnson spoke about, I think 2 days ago, inviting Bibi to the speak to Congress, joint session of Congress. And that was a good move, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because Chuck Schumer effectively nixed it. He said, no, we're not going to have a joint session of Congress. What do you make of the stuff? Schumer stepped in it. He's trying to bail himself out. And yet here it is. It's like a political football. The Republicans are trying to take advantage of it. What's your take on the political aspects of this, Joe?
I think, Mike Johnson right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I just heard on the wires calling for Speaker of the House to be removed and all that. So hopefully that doesn't go that way. But we don't need any more chaos in the Republican Party at this point. We really got to stick to the people that are in there. We got one vote majority. It's really scary. If we lost that vote through this conflict with the Speaker of the House, it would be bad. But Schumer's showing his cards. Listen, he's I'm sorry to say it. I'm not Jewish. I'm Italian. He's a fake Jew. He doesn't really believe in supporting Israel. As much as he says he is, he's not. This isn't supporting Israel. Israel is losing soldiers. Many hundreds of soldiers are dying. We don't hear about that. We're not catching that on the mainstream media. They're dying. They're being killed. This is really serious. What to do with them? Jared Kushner talked about it. They beat him up yesterday about speaking about we're going to bring him in the desert. What do we do with all these people? The infrastructure shot. It had to be. They're still not out of the tunnels all over that strip of land. So Israel needs America right now, and Schumer and the Democrats again are showing with Biden just how anti-Israel they are.
Lee, what do you make of the fact that none of the other Arab countries around Israel, Israel's surrounded, they don't want to take the Palestinians? What do you make of that?
Because they've been trouble for however long you want to roll back the test of time. And just to back up real quick about Schumer, if you remember a couple of months ago, Schumer gave an impassioned speech about Israel. And it was the only time I think that I can ever remember that he actually said something that was worthwhile. And here we go. A few months later, he spins it around again. This is a guy who is just like every other Democrat, man. Whatever way the wind is blowing, that's where, they turn their attention and try to, garner votes or garner sympathy or garner whatever. So it's another hollow, fake scenario from Schumer. But as far as the Palestinians go, you could not be more correct. Where's Egypt? Where is Syria? Where are some of these other countries that are literally within a stone's throw to take the Palestinian refugees? They don't want them because everywhere they go, havoc follows.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that, Lee. And I'm going to give you a little more of a cynical position on this. What would you say if my position was Joe Biden is doing this at the direction of his political operatives for the sole focus of winning back Muslim voters in the state of Michigan?
I think that's a very, first of all, logical way to look at it politically. And I don't think there's any question. I don't think the Democrats do anything without a political motive behind it. They try to give you this idea that they care about anything. They only care about trying to retain power. It's really sad because when you look back at the history, Israel has been by our side the entire time. And for us to even remotely turn our back on them in this time when they are in a battle for their survival, for their very existence, and we want to side with the enemy, I'm sorry, but to me, America has to be, has to recognize that, has to be pointed out time and time and time again. And shows like this are very important to do that, because this is really serious stuff that's going on. And yes, you're 100% right. This is 100% political.
Joe, do you share that same my concern about Trump's leading in Michigan, depending upon what poll you're looking, 5 to 8 points. Now, I think that's aggressive. He's probably up a little bit less than that, but still, Trump leading in Michigan. Joe, what other type of cynicism could lead you to believe anything different? I mean, I don't think this is in Biden's heart to be going after Israel, but he's being pulled by the far left-wing radicals in his party.
They want it both. They want it both ways. We can see it. We know it. And it's the old Washington two-step again. Lindsey Graham is sometimes like that too when we have power. So he's on both sides of an issue. They think they can keep winning on being on both sides of an issue with double standards, dual justice system. And this is another play by them. They need to feed red meat to their base. They can't have, like Antifa, that's what this Gaza movement, you saw it in New York when this all went down in the last few months. They can't have the warm days of summer coming and all of a sudden the Chicago, when the Democrats have their convention in Chicago, they can't have them doing what happened in '68 to Chicago when the hippies went over and tore it apart. So they're afraid of their own base. And right now, I just worry about the Jewish Americans that they're going to come home in November and, whatever. I'm talking to a lot of them like, this is it. You've got to understand. So they have a problem with violence because the streets will run red again with blood. This time won't be Black Lives Matter. It'll be Gaza refugees and the whole 9 yards. So this is a recipe for disaster. They don't know what to do. They cook their own goose, and Democrats are screwed right now. And they just hope that the news media can push it through and they can continue to fundraise off of the bleeding hearts. And Chris Murphy, I hit him today on Twitter. Every day I'm hitting him. It's from my state. He's leading the charge of the Democrats had a border plan. Trump did it all. Trump said it all. It's all that. No, it wasn't. It was 20 years of you pushing sanctuary cities, sanctuary states in Connecticut, like New Haven, and our state. And now, because it's a presidential election year, you want to have a half-baked, BS border plan that doesn't work. So they're done on every issue. They're done. I just feel, as I did weeks ago on your show last time, for the people that are being run over, the young people, the innocents in Palestine. Not on the bleeding heart, but it's true. It's just a part of war. It didn't have to be, and the UN should have helped.
Lee, along Joe's point there, where he's talking about a summer of discontent, the city of Chicago. Lee, what's the chance that we're going to see all these Palestinian sympathizers showing up in Chicago, just frustrated as you know what, marching in the streets, trying to get into the convention, wreaking havoc? I mean, if any indication what happened in Congress this week, where they went in, had to be arrested, they're showing up in these college campuses, sit-ins, trying to block the president's motorcade. I mean, this is heading towards a summer of disaster if things continue on their present path. Your thoughts on that, Lee?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. So the Palestinian population, not Palestinian, excuse me, the Muslim population continues to grow in this country, as does the Muslim sympathizer, the Palestinian sympathizers. And you are seeing these protests all over the place. You did see it even at the State of the Union. You saw things happening that night. So I would think, without question, the Democrat convention will have as many protesters as they can muster up. This is, every college campus. This is a real serious deal that's going on across this country. And what I can't understand, maybe, the two of you are smarter than me. I still don't understand how so many people have fallen from the being in favor of our Jewish allies. So essentially, I do agree with you. I think there will be some chaos in the streets, in particular around the Democrat National Convention.
Lee, let me ask you this. Do you think Speaker Johnson should go through with his offer on Benjamin Netanyahu? Schumer's going to shut it down in the Senate. He's not going to allow it. Or would that be too much of a partisan move right now? Because bear in mind, the House is going to be out for 2 weeks. But when he comes back, the situation could change. Is Mike Johnson making a good political move here, Lee?
Well, I think now, as we saw on Friday with Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out and calling again for him being ousted, you're stirring this up. And as you said, a couple-week break probably doesn't bode well. Yeah, I like Mike Johnson. I don't like to see this kind of chaos move forward. Certainly, in the House, we need to be together, a lot more together, more bonded, cohesive unit. So yeah, I don't like to see this, what's going on right now in Washington.
Yeah, our party could be looking a little bit better for definitely, and certainly the stunt Marjorie Taylor Greene pulled on Friday, that's not helping the situation any. I mean, we've got a razor thin majority right now. We've lost a few key members through retirement and whatnot. Lee, I'm with you on that 100%. Folks, we're going to break for 60 seconds, but when we come back, this is just one international debacle of the Biden administration. We're going to get into what's going on in Ukraine and a follow-up on that and some other items back in 60 seconds.
MelissaHousebg.com. Bella Grace Elixir.
She called me today and she told me something, and I said, you have got to tell the audience this. They need to hear this because it's really good news for those of you that are taking Bella Grace.
Well, I went to my hairdresser and I had not told her about this product that I've been taking. When she was blow drying my hair, she said, I just noticed when I was parting your hair and fixing it that you have a bunch of new hair growth. I've been going to this lady for probably 13 years and she's never said that to me. And I had noticed it, but for the fact that she noticed it was, I had to call Brand right away and tell him. She just said, you've never had this like this and it's growing and you just have all these baby hairs growing in and they're kind of curly. And so I just told her that what I was taking and she was amazed. So
Bella Grace Elixir. MelissaHousebg.com.
Lee, we were just talking about the debacle of this Biden administration policy in Israel, where Israel literally is fighting for its own survival. They're not the only American ally that's fighting for its survival. And, we're not going to debate whether Ukraine should be getting $60 billion, yes or no. But one thing they should be getting is credit when they end up taking the initiative. They strike the oil refineries and storage facilities in Russia, which, again, is how the Russians are financing this war. And what does the Biden administration do, Lee? They come out and try to put, the cuffs on the Ukrainians for attacking the Russians. Why in the world would they do that? Again, am I being too cynical? They just don't want rising oil prices in an election year.
Well, I think that makes sense for sure. I also am always puzzled if you're in a war, you're fighting to win a war. All means necessary. Whatever it takes. The same idea with Israel. Whatever it takes. You hate collateral damage in Israel. Now, the idea that you're going to, again, put the handcuffs on someone you're supposedly supporting through almost a proxy scenario, and you're going to tell them yes to this and no to that and no to that and yes to this. That doesn't work, man. You're either winning the war or trying to win or trying to defend yourself, or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, Ukraine's already in a difficult situation it is right now. They're waiting on U.S. aid. Okay. Little reporting that the Europeans did finance $55 billion worth of equipment for Ukraine. But Joe, let me turn to you for just a second here. I mean, to hamper the Ukraine effort on something that has been successful, launching attacks against Russian refineries, Russian oil supply depots, it just boggles my mind. Yes, oil prices have risen, but last I looked, and we'll talk about this later in the show, the S&P 500 is near an all-time record. Unemployment rate's at 3.9%. What is the Biden administration thinking when they're trying to put the cuffs, other than the fact it's just a ploy to keep oil prices down? And again, it's just Joe, another long line of failures in administration policy run by a bunch of hardcore leftists.
Well, I don't think there's a method to the madness, but it reminds me, I said this before in some shows, it reminds me of playing Monopoly when we were kids with each other and nobody read the rules and everybody was making the rules up in Monopoly and changing them. And every time I was the banker, I had the rules and I did what I wanted. We've all been there when we were kids and nobody knew anything about real estate or banking, but that's what they're doing. They're making up rules, switching them. I really think there's nobody in charge. I think there's competing forces behind dementia Biden. I'm sorry, he's got dementia or he's faking it really, really good to stay out of jail. But there's competing factions in the White House, in the, let's just call it the left guard, and they are the left hand of God. They are doing whatever they want, and there's arguments going on. People are doing at the State Department one thing, CIA is doing something else. Every different department, there's no continuity, there's no master plan that a president would know and be able to decide. I think that the help, the butler and the gardener and the maids and everybody's taken over the mansion, and Biden is out of control, and they're doing, whoever does what they want. They know the media will be there to back them up. They're feeding red meat. All they want to do on the left is keep feeding red meat to their base and blame Trump for everything, and that way they can get away with anything.
Can I just throw something out there really quick with this
Sure.
topic, because it always bothers me? Trump says he could end this in one day. One day. How come the current administration doesn't even budge an inch to try to get these two powers down and sit down and try to figure out a way for a ceasefire? I mean, at least give it an effort. At least try. It just seemingly, Trump says he can do it in a day. Well, maybe America should try to step in and try to put an end to this. It does seem like there is some, not wiggle room, but there's some place where leadership could get together and try to actually stop this insanity in Ukraine.
Well, I think, Lee, to address your point there, the Biden administration, they haven't been able to get the aid package through yet. Congress is going away for 2 weeks. I mean, Ukraine is prosecuting this war at least to a stalemate. I would think the administration would do everything they can when Ukraine has positive initiatives to support it, not hamper it. Let me ask you this, Lee. First we had early in the Biden administration the debacle of the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Right.
Now we're seeing the Democratic Party, a long supporter of Israel, completely flipped on its side, supporting Palestinian side. And then we have the Ukraine situation where, yes, they've been pushing for the aid, but then they're blocking what they're doing. Lee, what are your callers telling you? Because, I mean, you talk to a broad base of people every day. What kind of feedback are you getting from the callers? And are these points that we're talking about echoed by what the average American's thinking?
I think the average American would be dead on by saying what happened in Afghanistan was the worst retreat in American history. In fact, yesterday, I had one of my all-time favorite guests on, former Congressman Rob Simmons, who's also colonel in the Army, Vietnam veteran, who was in Vietnam during that retreat and was going over this step by step, what kind of an absolute travesty Afghanistan was. So militarily, we have become an embarrassment. I mean, to me, there's no question about that. We're a loser there. It could be our biggest single loss in history as far as being a retreat. All the weaponry that we got left behind, which is now being used against us, and the fact that we had an air base there within striking, or at least viewing distance of our number one adversary, China. We were right there. We decided to give all that up. And for what? So that there can be some kind of a feigned celebration on 9/11. So Biden could say, oh, I ended this on 9/11. Total joke. As far as Israel goes, I think I've already explained how I feel. Absolutely a total joke. We should be 100% behind Israel in this until every single member of Hamas is dead. Now, Ukraine, I may have a little bit of a different, perspective or point of view than a lot of people. I'm not necessarily sure. I certainly don't think we should be funding it at this level with no accountability or a limited amount of accountability to where my tax dollars are going. But if I was to grade the military, not the military members, but just the military actions from the day Biden took over to now, it's an F. He's a failure.
Yeah, I mean, everything on the international stage, Lee, I echo that. And when you talk about tax dollars, that's a great segue into what I want to talk about on the domestic front. You know, the Supreme Court came out and said Biden could not unilaterally forgive student loan debt. Okay. Now, what does he do? The public sector employees, he goes out and he finds a loophole in the law, $5 billion of additional student loan forgiven. Now, it's relatively small comparatively to the 1.6 trillion that 41 million Americans own, but nonetheless, every time Biden takes from one group to give to another, it's all politically motivated. And I mean, every single thing this guy does is based on politics. He puts his finger up, see which way's the wind blowing, and the radicals on his staff. Lee, this is wrong. And again, I want you and Joe to, chime in on this. What can we do about it, if anything?
Joe, you want to go first? You want me to go
Yeah,
first?
I'll hit this one. I think what's happening is Mike Johnson. Everything Mike Johnson is doing, maybe he's going to, we don't know the guy yet, but maybe he's playing a lot of cards, keeping him close to his vest. But this is where you would usually politicize spending. So in this $1.2 trillion bill that they're talking about here, we need much more publicity. And we even need to say, hey, what about the border wall? Well, let's put some money in the border wall. Well, they can bring things in. They don't want to. So Johnson right now, I think he's a very conservative, plays cards close to his vest. That's not good right now. Right now, it's an election year. He needs to be doing with not necessarily what Schumer's doing that way, but really say, hey, we need a balancing act here. He's not doing it. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to push him to do that, because if he falls in line because he's new and he's maybe a little naive on how to handle the ropes and the power of government, we got to get him up, because right now you've got to tell us what you're doing. Are you letting the Democrats have everything their way? We need to push back on Congress. We may lose it. Like next week, we have one more Republican resign. That's it. They'll have to split the House leadership or some other nonsense. We're that close. And if Johnson doesn't step up right now and fight back, some of those in the base are going to turn on him, because they don't care. They'll burn the damn place to the ground as long as they don't allow another McCarthy and another person doing it. So this is a moment for him to shine and step up, Mike Johnson. Right now, all eyes are on him.
I think if you look at the Biden scenario with this, though, if you're looking at the gifts that he keeps giving or trying to give either a certain sex of the American people, the thought that you're going to ask waitresses and mechanics and bartenders and store clerks to pay the college tuition for folks who knew what they were getting into, who went on to become a lawyer or a doctor or what have you, is insane to me, right? So, but we're in a very dangerous time, I think, because the public now is voting 100% with their own personal interest. There's no longer, we've lost this idea of American pride and what is right and what is wrong, because the progressive mindset has been, let's just keep giving and giving and giving. We'll give and give and give and make sure you vote for us, but we'll keep giving to you. It's the idea, the whole welfare state idea. And, the college tuitions are just a small fraction of that. But listen, we're trying to buy as many young votes as we possibly can. They wanted it on a grander scale. As you said, they had to scale it down a little bit, but they're still trying to buy these votes. It's dangerous to think like that. We have to have, a smarter, better, I hate to say this, but a smarter and more well-informed, better electorate, because there's going to come a point in time when we're going to go to that piggy bank and there's going to be nothing left.
Well, Lee, I echo your sentiment there, because, if you look at aggregately the debt of this country, we're at $34.5 trillion right now. Biden just proposed a $7 trillion spending plan. Folks, try to wrap your arms around that. That's $2 trillion more than we spent at the top of the COVID situation. And we haven't scaled it back at all. And Joe, Lee, I never see government spending go down. Never in my lifetime. 1 year it stayed level under the Clinton administration where they actually balanced the budget. But my goodness, the Biden administration literally is making Donald Trump and Barack Obama look like they're savers. I mean, this insanity cannot continue this way. Now, the House is leaving for 2 weeks. They left, at close of business last night. But Joe, first you and then Lee, this insanity. I mean, we've got American consumers, 1.2 trillion in credit card debt. We've got the federal government, 34.5 trillion. And I keep hearing, and I've been hearing it for decades, well, at a certain point, just like Lee, you just said, it's going to come a tipping point. But for some inexplicable reason, that tipping point, it only came in 1987 and in 2008. Joe, what's it going to take to get this Congress to straighten things out? And is it going to be the election of Donald Trump that we need to save us from this?
Well, before Donald Trump is even in the game right now, I think it's going to be Washington. It always is. Mortgage rates are crazy. They're talking about the mortgage rates being cut. We can't trust anything that's being said right now. The public can't afford the taxes. My house is going up $500 this year. Like right now, they're doing it so we're at $12,000 for a ranch over here. The Northeast, for the worst part, is these Northeast blue people. They keep voting for this crazy stuff. You can't even, your mortgage right now is less than your taxes. So property taxes, state taxes, the blue states basically are running the show right now. And so Johnson, again, I keep beating a dead horse here, but Mike Johnson has to come out with some great new ideas and put them out. This is showbiz right now, like Newt Gingrich. He must put it out because he's been in enough right now. He did a good job at the State of the Union with his eye rolls. That was better than words. Okay, what he did was better than words. But we need new plans and new ideas financially coming out of the House of Representatives, or we will lose it.
So debt to service now will be $1 trillion this year, meaning interest alone, $1 trillion. That's more, by the way, than we pay on the military. Now the interest is over. This is the tipping point. We cannot go much further than this. A $7 trillion budget, essentially, to me, not only is it criminal, it's diabolical, it's tyrannical, it's to me, it's 100% impeachable. And it's treasonous to try to throw that kind of those kinds of numbers around. You can't sustain this. It's not eventually we will not be able to fund the military like we want to fund it and other programs that are essential like we want to fund it. We cannot keep doing this over and over again. And there's no more deficit hawks. I know they tried when in the beginning of this sort of merry-go-round of speakers where they tried, some hardliners wanted some things done. I think we got to get back to that point. I don't think we can budge as a party moving forward without insisting that we stop spending this kind of money.
Yeah, no, I'm in your camp on that, but I think Mike Johnson's somewhat up against it. I mean, again, they had to take a 2-week recess like it's mandatory, but they did. They basically passed a bill in the House yesterday. It's uncertain when it's going to get a vote in the Senate. There were 6 funding bills as part of that piece, and that basically funded the government through September. It was about a half a year's worth of spending. So I'm going to give Mike Johnson a little bit of a pass on that not because he's not other than a rock solid conservative. But again, when we come down to the fact that we have literally a 1 to 2 seat majority, I can't put that on Mike Johnson's hands and say, well, we have to do whatever, the far right wants to do. And then it will not end very well. So I don't know. I have mixed reviews on it. Go ahead, Lee.
No, I agree. I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying as a theory, somewhere along the line, some group of people are going to have to say, that's it. We cannot continue. We have to draw a line in the sand. It's not infinite. I know some economists want to say we have infinite amount of money. We can just keep printing it. But you know what ends up happening? We all know. My dollar is worth a lot less. I go to the store, I can't buy as much. I can't buy as much food. So essentially, you're just continuing to strip away, my freedoms when you're doing this. So somewhere along the line, strong legislators, maybe not right now, but it can't be too much further down the line where people, at least the Republican conservatives, say, we've got to draw this line in the sand. Something has to give.
Well, there's something
Go
else,
ahead.
Mark. There's something else that's really important that we haven't talked about, and that's the cashless society. That's the digital dollar. If that comes in with these 10, 15, 20 million, I ran for Congress in 08, there was 7 or 8 or 9 million people here. We've got 40 million people here. And so if you go cashless and you've got an underground economy with cash, people making money on the table, and you remove that process with all those people, they all will have to fall on a safety net because they can't cash the money. They can't do business because cash won't exist. I mean, this is 5 years out. If this goes down and Trump doesn't stop it, you won't be able to, like a symptom, be able to deal with the illegal immigrants living here and other people, college students, everybody hustling, Venmo, you name it, it'll be shut down. The government wants to watch all of it. So we've got that that's a really big thing, because without the underground economy right now, you don't have the ability to function. It's odd. It doesn't work in the world of the IRS, but it exists. And so if that's gone and we're all digital, look out, this country will implode.
Well, look what we just talked about here. The Biden administration's great accomplishments in Afghanistan, Israel, Ukraine, a $7 trillion budget, $34.5 trillion in debt, forgiving student loans after the Supreme Court said no. We've got more on the other side of this break, folks. 60 seconds, we're going to be back, and we're going to be talking about the border and what the Federal Reserve is going to be doing to help this situation. Be back in 60.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
My story started with alcohol, and I had tried going to other treatments, and all I did was think about how I was not going to drink or how I was going to drink one more day and then stop the next day. And Katie had found a treatment. I thought it was kind of hokey.
I could see a couple days into it, it's like the light bulb went on with him.
It's an IV infusion of all natural NAD. It saved my life and my family.
We've been where you sit.
The hardest part of this is making that phone call and just come in and talk to us.
So, Lee, I had these thoughts earlier. In Russia, they jail dissidents, put them in maximum security prisons, and they charge them with extremism. What do we do here in this country? We applaud things like that. So let's talk about what news that broke this past week down at the border. Again, it seems like every week we're running into this situation. The town of El Paso the Texas security group there gets overrun. Texas, actually, the Supreme Court steps up and says their law is constitutional to try to prevent people from coming in. And what does the White House call Texas? Extremist and unconstitutionalist. I mean, this is a perfect example where average Americans are looking in the mirror going, there's nothing extremist about Texas trying to support its border.
And there's also the only other caveat I would say to that, the only people that don't fall under that category are the January 6 folks who are still in jail, some of them for literally just walking around the Capitol, and they've been thrown in jail for now over 3 years now. So that's a chaotic situation, but that's solely because of the people that were the person that they were supporting and being Donald Trump. I said this over a year ago that the border was going to be the #1 issue in this election. Then I didn't, in my wildest imagination, dream that we would be seeing what we've seen so far at the southern border, with argumentably 10 million people having come across the border so far since Biden has taken over. Who knows how many we don't know that have gotten here. As Joe had said earlier on, 40 million. I think 40 million could be a low number as far as folks. I think we could be up more like 60 million by now of illegals who are here. So to me, if I were the governor of Texas or any of these other border states and I wanted to protect my citizens, I would do everything. I would literally make the federal government come down and have to physically challenge. I hate to say it like that, but I have to, my sole job as the leader of a state is to protect the citizens within that state. And the federal government isn't doing it. And we're watching every single night, either another illegal has killed somebody or raped somebody or molested somebody. It's happening every single night across this country. So no, I believe wholeheartedly that in these border states, in particular Texas, has a right to defend themselves, and shame on the federal government for doing what they've done so far. It's terrible.
Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the country. Very simple, very simple. They're bankrupting us. They've allowed us and promoted us to be invaded, not just the southern border, Florida, the northern border. And they want to take our guns away so we can't protect ourselves. I mean, this is the movement of Chris Murphy, Senator Blumenthal, all the lefty senators. This is what they want. Bankrupt us, all in the name of bleeding heart syndrome. This has been going on for 50 years. This is nothing new. They're just accelerating it. So we're really on a crash course. Trump doesn't get in, that's it. We're done. We go into chaos, I believe, it one way or the other, just because there's too many people that are going to bust the safety net. The government cannot afford the safety net. And the numbers aren't there. And then the congressional, we didn't talk about this yet. There's been a lot of talk this week about, how do you take the census? And then all of a sudden you have new congressional seats. And they're going to be in blue states because that's where they're shipping most of them up. Red states are trying to push them out. So guess what? You've got more districts in Connecticut and Massachusetts, in Illinois. And there you go. You'll have a permanent Democrat parties. This is their plan. Trump getting in and deporting many of them, put some of them in the military if they want to join. There's a lot of things we can do when he gets in, but the reality is that wall's got to get up. That wall's got to be finished. It's got to be monitored, and it's got to be done. We have to find the money for one thing only, the border wall.
Yeah, I think you both are right on that. And we've said on this show many times that the border is the number one issue. And it is. I mean, more people are concerned about that than any other issue. I mean, look at what this administration is doing to great American companies. Just this past week, they go after arguably the most successful American company in Apple, with the federal government in 16 states launching an antitrust case against Apple. They take a commodity, liquefied natural gas, that this country has an abundance of, Cheniere Energy, shipping it to Europe where it's needed. What does the Biden administration do? They prohibit it. And then maybe the dumbest thing they did, if they're trying to win Michigan, why do you want to go after Ford and GM and tell them they have to make 50% of their vehicles as electric when consumer demand is dropping like a rock, cost of that go up? And it's certainly the shareholders of Ford and GM don't want that. Joe, first you and then Lee. I mean, why is the Biden administration punishing successful American companies?
Well, it's the old Ronald Reagan. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, what does he say? Regulate it. If it keeps moving and it fails, subsidize it. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're playing social engineering, political engineering, and they're messing with it because you know what? The country right now is lost its way. When we were kids, and I always think we're old man. When we were kids, there's no more love of country. There's no more Boy Scouts. There's no more we do the right thing. Right now, it's chaos, and they would have us believe through the think tanks and through the Democrat Party that they have this all figured out, and we're just too ignorant to figure this out. And I'll say this to a lot of us on the right here that have led the way. There are no more tinfoil hats for those on the right. Just about everything has been proved that we have been beating up the government with since the Tea Party days. Proven. That's very important. We're on the right side of history, and the Democrats aren't. They just control the media. That's why, Mark, your show, Lee, your show, all these programs are out there. They're fractured, they're everywhere, and we really are the new media because it will take an informed public. As I stated in Hartford Current last time in a huge article on disinformation, that it's an informed public is the only thing that's going to save us. People that were professors at Sacred Heart and Quinnipiac disagreed with me. They thought it was something else. No, the public has to be informed. Lee, you mentioned that earlier. If they're not informed, they're being I don't want to say it on, on TV, but they're being hoodwinked and they're just voting and they don't know what they're voting for. We're marching quickly towards a collapse of, I'm not kidding, the collapse of civilization right now, the collapse of it. It's occurring in real time for us all to see live stream. And Trump is the answer. He's the only one. There's nobody else who could take the heat.
So, Joe, I think you were spot on. I love what you said. I say this all the time. It's a big, sort of issue that I try to tackle on the radio here, which is we've lost that love of country. You want to call it this younger generation with the 15-second mentality. I do believe that is a case out there, and it's very sad to watch that unfold. Not everybody, but I think a majority of younger folks just don't feel the same way that we felt growing up about the United States of America. And that's a serious, serious issue. As far as the electric vehicles or, why they would do something, even here in the state of Connecticut, overwhelmingly, the citizens are pushing back against this electric vehicle mandate that Governor Lamont wants to impose. And, they're still debating this back and forth. I don't have an answer because it doesn't make any sense when nobody wants this. And even the regular general public pushes back hard, and it doesn't work. The electric vehicles do not work as well as the gas-powered vehicles. If somewhere down the line you're able to create an electric vehicle that can start up and drive 500 miles on one charge, and it costs the same amount, okay, I'll think about it. But right now you don't have that. So when the technology actually catches up to gas-powered vehicles, come back and see me then. Right now, don't force me to have to change the way I live to sort of satisfy some vain idea that you have. I mean, there's so many things wrong with electric vehicles. A, the batteries are too heavy. Suspension bridges are in jeopardy when trucks go across them. Trucks can only travel. Imagine a tractor trailer only being able to go 150 or 200 miles before it has to stop for an hour to charge. You'll never get products. It's insane. So I don't have an answer as to why the Dems are pushing so hard, because this is a loser for them politically.
Well, let me ask you this. The Federal Reserve came out this past week, Lee, and basically signaled that, they're looking to cut rates at some point this year, despite the fact that we still have inflation running north of 3%. Now, again, I listened to what Jerome Powell said, and the Fed has done a reasonably good job getting inflation from 9% down to 3%, and they've actually, believe it or not, they've tightened the money supply marginally by reducing their balance sheet. But with us still having 3% inflation and the S&P 500 near all-time highs, the Nikkei over in Japan, all-time highs, gold prices just set a record. They're above $2,200 an ounce. Bitcoin was up $65,000 a coin. Lee, is it just money's being thrown at everything? I mean, do we have too much money out there? And I mean, help me out with this. Everything's going up.
I couldn't agree with you more. Aren't you waiting for that day when you flip on the television or check out your phone and it says stock market drops 1,100 points, stock market drops 1,400 points? You're waiting for this bubble to burst. Listen, I'm not wishing it because that would be a catastrophe, but I think you're accurate. I don't know why it continues to go up and it's so strong. It does seem like it's artificially inflated. I think bringing down the interest rates, if they can do that as we approach the elections, a feel good again for the public, and makes them think, oh, well, that's great. Maybe I can go and finally buy that house or sell mine and buy another. I think there's a lot of maneuvering with all of that, but I don't have an answer as to why it seemingly is an indestructible force, the stock market and the prices of all this going up. It doesn't seem real to me. It seems like it's too inflated.
Joe?
Yeah, well, I'll say one word to this whole issue: Taiwan. What are we doing with troops in Taiwan? You mess with Taiwan and you provoke. Well, look what Biden's trying to do. They're looking to provoke war everywhere. You will have no goods coming from China. You will have no semiconductors. These aren't no longer pipe dreams and scare tactics. It's actually we're right at a precipice of all of this blowing up because they have recognized in China and Russia and across the world that there's nobody at the helm. There's a faction of people that are running the White House that are odds with each other, and it's all like king of the mountain. They're taking what they want. That's really the core of what's occurring right now. Again, as far as electric vehicles, on the last subject, I drove to Florida, Sarasota, and back 2 weeks ago, and I saw when I had to stop and get gas 5 times each way, electric vehicles plugged in, parked there for hours. I'm looking at the people, they're sitting in their cars on their laptops, just sitting there charging their cars. It's nice. God bless you if you like it, but you're not running this country like that. Thousands of tractor trailers with the diesels running, parked on the side of the road all night long, moving the goods across this country. They're really trying with this electric stuff and this push to shut the country down. They're doing everything. Like I said, take your guns, open the border, and bankrupt you. This is not, these are the actions, and there's no formula or think tank that can prove otherwise.
Well, I'd like to add something to what you just said, Joe. Defense contractors, aerospace firms, those stocks are hitting 52-week highs on Wall Street, and it's no accident. When you're literally throwing money at replenishing your arms for everything that we're doing, it's no surprise that these stocks are hitting those levels. And again, I go back to what I said. Is the Federal Reserve going to buckle to Wall Street's pressure to lower interest rates? Yes, I know it would help out in reducing the interest expense, but are we risking reaccelerating inflation? You know, as you head into an election, everybody likes to see lower interest rates, but Joe and Lee, this one's got a lot of risk to it. And here's what we're going to do, folks. When we come back, we're going to take our final break, but when we come back, why is Donald Trump up in all 7 swing states? He's beating Biden by 20 points on the economy, the border. We're going to dive into it. Be back in 60.
We've learned through the pandemic we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
Okay, Lee, I'm going to go to you first and then Joe on this question. Biden down 20 points on the economy. Biden down minimum 25 points on how he handles the border. And the Democratic Party is basically making an argument, well, we're going to protect women's rights and we're going to protect you from bad government with Trump. Trump's a bad guy, bad orange guy. And, you know, a lot of Americans are saying, you know, Trump might be this, that, and the other thing, but his policies were pretty damn good. And I had more money in my pocket when Trump was president. Lee, is that the bottom line why Trump's leading in these 7 swing states? And if the election was held today, and it's not, he'd have north of 300 electoral votes. And the Biden administration literally is pulling their hair out saying, what else can we be doing?
I think if you looked at this a year and a half ago, you would say, okay, Trump still has to figure out a way to get those people in the middle who are, I'm not sure if I want to go down this road again. I mean, you have the people who adore and love Donald Trump, and then you've got the group of people who can't stand him and won't vote for him no matter what. It's that middle group that you got to win over. I think if you had asked me this a year and a half ago, I would say he's got a tall task to get those folks in the middle to not want to go down the road of chaos. I think we've now fast forwarded to the present day, and they watch what's happening at the southern border, as you just mentioned. Their buying power is severely diminished. They can't go to the store and buy the same amount of food that they once did. So now they're beginning to reassess. You know what? It wasn't that big a deal. I don't care about the tweets. I don't believe he's a fascist. We were at peace around the world. They're beginning to put all these things together, and then they look at Biden and they look at him stumbling and bumbling around. And I think they're beginning to get to this point where they're saying, I just think I'm better off with Trump than I am with Biden. And I think that's beginning to take hold. again, if you had asked me this question a year and a half ago, I would say it's going to be a tall task. But Biden is so weak, and his policies are so limiting to the American people. I believe Trump's resurgence has because of those reasons. It's Trump hasn't really changed much. Biden has been a failure, so you can factor that in. Trump's been a pretty steadfast person from the get-go. So I think people are looking at the negativeness of Biden and they're reacting to that.
Joe?
What he said, plus Robert Kennedy Jr., he's bringing sensible solutions, and sensible Republicans and independents are looking at it saying, I just looked at some polls, he's got 15%, 10%, 12. They're looking at the Democrats and going, if they're Democrat, whether they vote for Bobby or not, they're realizing, wait a second, Trump is whatever, but my guy's a dummy. And Robert Kennedy is giving us solutions. Some of them I don't like on the right, of course, but it makes sense. And he follows through with some clear thinking. He's going to be a major factor in it. Trump is doing what Trump does. He's being persecuted. African-American votes, not just young. Harvard Current interviewed me last week and said, well, it's 18 to 30-year-old black men that are voting. I said, no. You've got black women, single moms. Well, then they said to me, what about people that are over 65, a black woman? I said, listen, there are people, and I met one at the hospital yesterday, that a black woman, 68 years old. And what are they doing with the White House? So they've got it all wrong with the black vote. Where Trump already has a Spanish vote. Hopefully wins more Jewish vote. He gets up to maybe 40 at the end of the day. Most of them go home, but maybe gets 40%. That's what is working in his favor. But the black vote, when they watched African Americans in this country and they watched the entitlements going to the southern border to 10 million people, credit cards, health insurance, free rent, the whole 9 yards, we're going to win. The Republicans will win the black vote. And that's what we're shooting for. They can't stop the bleeding. There's nothing they can do right now because it's the world sees them. The emperor with no clothes is out. Everybody knows.
Lee, as the late, great Rush Limbaugh used to say, it's my job to keep an eye on the rest of the media so you don't have to. Well, your show host here has been keeping an eye on some of the mainstream media. And Lee, am I off base or am I on base? I'm starting to get a sense that the mainstream media, they're not there yet, but they're on the edge of full panic mode, seeing Joe Biden consistently losing these 7 swing states. And nationally, he's down in a 5-way race, 5 to 6 points to Donald Trump. And those numbers are not moving one iota.
So what happens if it does actually trend even more towards Trump? Do they really panic and come up with some feigned illness or even a real illness for Biden and bounce him out and replace him with Michelle or Gavin or whomever else is in line? I think that becomes a real possibility if we go further and further, in the polls go further and further towards Donald Trump. So listen, the mainstream media, they're in bed with the Democrat Party. They've been in bed with the Democrat Party for, as long as I can remember. It's been on steroids and amplified to the nth degree since Trump took over. Basically it's another arm, another branch of the Dems. And it's terrible. I'm in the media. I hate this. I hate the fact that nobody simply wants to report the truth anymore. Somehow the idea that the truth shall set you free has been lost on the American media, and shame on them for that. So I think we're still in flux, even if Biden actually is the actual candidate, because he goes down 10 points in some of these states. I can see them, calling an audible here in the 11th hour.
Lee, I'm not going to discount that at all. He has steadfastly maintained he's going to be the candidate. He's out there, but we see these things. Joe, you've sort of had the opinion that you think Biden's going to be the nominee, but occasionally you've shifted. Where's your head at right now concerning Biden and these poll numbers? And if anything, are they simply executing their plan, or is their plan just not being accepted by the American people?
A star burns bright before a star burns out. And Biden is, yes, I'm in, I'm going all in, and he's not going to be in. There's no way. If there's riots in the streets or anything goes down, a war, people don't feel confident right now that he could operate a war, run a war. That's even no one's thinking about.
How can he debate? He can't debate either. It's got to be a debate somewhere. It's impossible for him to debate Trump. It would be a slaughter, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. And I think they put Gavin in at the end of the day. They'll kick and scream, but maybe nature will take over. And if nature takes over, then the Democrat Party will open up everything for 2 weeks. Everybody can run for president, and then they'll just rig it. Nancy Pelosi will nominate her nephew, Gavin Newsom, and Democrats will all come home.
Well, we got a few minutes left in the program, and I want to sort of close it on two interesting stories here. First, the gift that just keeps on giving, and that's Hunter Biden. Now, a lot of people in the media say, oh, Hunter Biden, nobody cares about this. And people on our side say, yeah, nobody cares about 1-6. Joe, that was an interesting exchange between Miss AOC and Mr. Bobulinski earlier in the week. Bobulinski seemed to get the best of it. And this Hunter thing, it's not going away.
Oh, you know what? I want to open up like a head shop, call it Hunter Biden. You know, the money you can make on that guy's name right now, people aren't looking at it like that. But if you could trademark Hunter Biden, it's a clown show. He's a bag man for his father. He's a drug addict, and he's protected. Now they're talking about him being with the CIA. That was the latest one I just saw today. I went, what? That's why Hunter isn't prosecuted, because he's an operator for the CIA. That broke news on Drudge Report today. I'm like, come on. So you know what? I want to be Hunter Biden. The bottom line is the general public isn't buying any of it. And at the end of the day, it's their pocketbook. It's the credit card debt that's going to decide this election. I've been saying that for a year.
Lee?
I think, yeah. Did you guys lose my video? I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but anyway, probably better look for everybody out there anyway without my face. You know, you had mentioned had the best or got the best of AOC. You know, an acorn, a leaf, my shoe can get the best of AOC. So saying that isn't necessarily saying a lot. But my point is, Bobulinski really did well in that exchange. And the idea that RICO is not an actual law is sort of laughable. It shows you how much he actually does know. So that being said, I think, Hunter, this is a real deal. And the more that the more that we find out about this, the more light that shines on this. You know, that's another sort of nail in the Biden coffin down the road. Who knows? You know, maybe this also plays into the idea as to whether or not he actually is the candidate.
Lee, how would you handicap Trump's week? You know, he had some ups and downs in the legal fare, but, you know, the lawfare against him, sometimes it's successful. But I think this past week, Trump had a pretty good week. What's your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking about this too. Is he going to find a way, or is somebody going to come in like Lancelot on a white horse and come up with $450 million for him? I still think that's actually a possibility. But as far as a general sense of the legality that's facing Trump, I think from where we were, again, a couple of months ago, thinking, well, all of these potential scenarios are looming over the horizon against him, and one by one they sort of got pushed to the side, except for the financial part of this. So I think he's in a much better place today than I thought he would be in today, let's say 2 months ago. So I think that is trending in the right direction.
Joe?
I think he's doing excellent. He's just one lucky SOB. Unless he's smart. I think he doesn't even know, and he's probably shocks himself by the things that, and everyone on the right wing, the evangelical, it's an act of God. No, he's just lucky. He owned casinos. The guy is just really fortunate. He's probably got a good heart, and this is something he doesn't get. I've said this many times. He only hits people, politically, and names them or whatever after they hit him. You'll never see Donald Trump wants everybody to be his friend. He's my friend. He's my friend, even if he's not. But if you hit him, then he hits you. But it's like your parents come home and they catch you instead of your brother who hit you first, and he gets caught all the time. So I think he's doing well. I think he's going to make it in a way that makes us all, we're on the edge of our seat. This is live theater. I mean, every day, God knows what the next clickbait is going to be with Donald Trump.
Well, I never thought I would see it, guys, but I actually think the radical left-wing media is turning Donald Trump into a sympathetic figure. I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think this would happen. They're just so anti-Trump on everything. And I think the average Joe out there is saying, gosh, if they can do this to Trump, they could do it to me. And I'll add one other comment, then I'll let you guys each close it out. Final minute. Donald Trump, when he gets on his game, is funny. This reminds me, this campaign, of a lot that happened in 2016, where the the media just gave Trump billions and billions of dollars of free airtime. And Trump smiled, he laughed, he cracked jokes. And when he cracks jokes now, the media think he's serious all the time. Lee, start with you a minute. Joe, close it out. I mean, Donald Trump, a sympathetic figure, Donald Trump, the comedian, is that going to get him some votes?
I don't know if Donald Trump is a sympathetic figure to the point where it actually sways the election. I mean, I do think he's funny. I think he's hilarious at times, but what happens is they manipulate what he says. You know, whatever he says is usually taken out of context. So even though it's funny in the moment, then they have headlines for a while, and people only read headlines, unfortunately. So I'm not really sure that is going to end up, paying dividends for him. I do think this, though. I do think, shows like this, where people are being educated on certain issues, are vital. People need to watch these because, unfortunately, America now has that 15-second mentality, and they have to know that this is one of the most important times, if not the most important time, to be a citizen and to make a decision and go out and cast a vote as far as the future of this country goes. So I hope you're right. I hope he has some kind of a sympathetic sort of slant to this. I'm not betting on it, but I hope you're right. Now, I just hope that the American public gets better educated on some of these issues.
Joe?
I think the public really needs comic relief. That's what you're talking about. And he provides it. And the worse things get for people at home with rising interest rates costs and their credit card debt and all the stuff we've talked about, all the costs, they need comic relief. But something that he did is really smart. We didn't touch upon it. I'd like to real quick, the RNC, putting Laura Trump in there with the gentleman from North Carolina. I think that was a really great move. And I think what I know that's going on in the general campaign, the people that are running it, this is not the 2016 or the 2020 with Brad Pascal and all that nonsense. This campaign is being run, and what you're not seeing, what's coming that you're not seeing in the campaign is unbelievable. The RNC is about to take itself and put itself where it belongs. It needs to get the credibility back from all the things that were done under Romney's daughter. I won't mention her name, or not daughter, niece. Nice woman, I met her, but the bottom line, you can't be buying Lululemon and ask people to donate. You can ask them to donate to Donald Trump's legal fund because it's being weaponized against them. That they will be sympathetic to. So RNC, look for them to make some bold moves. The campaign, they're very stealthy. You're not going to even know what's coming. Democrats know that.
Well, Lee, one final question for you. Where can people find you at that great radio show that you do from the great state of Connecticut?
Well, thank you very much. The website is 949newsnow.com. We have a great app. If you just go on, your smartphone and type in 94.9 News Now, you can listen to us anywhere. I'm on 6 to 10 weekday mornings. I also have a website, leelci.com. And again, I'm sorry about my video conking out here at the end, but I'm honored and I really appreciate you inviting me on today. I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate, hopefully I can come back down the road.
Lee, there's no question you're going to come back down the road because I know our audience is going to really enjoy hearing from you. And I've got a little news announcement to make here. Joe Visconti, our guest today, he is going to have a weekend show on Patriot.tv coming soon. Joe, congratulations on that. Welcome to the Patriot.tv team. And I also want to advise all our viewers and listeners, you can go to Patriot.tv probably starting tomorrow, Sunday, Monday. You can sign up for our great service, General Flynn, Brannon House. They're going to be hosting a great event on March 29th, March 30th, where we're going to drive all the American patriots as Patriot.tv comes to a favorite viewing place near you. We have great show hosts, great guests that come on, and General Flynn and Brannon will be spearheading the big event on the 29th and the 30th. So we welcome everybody to join us on that. Joe and Lee, thank you for joining me today. It's been my pleasure having both of you. I look forward to seeing you soon. Folks, we'll be back next weekend covering the news the way you expected. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for viewing and listening.